Hi, I'm Otto Penzler. I'm at the Mysterious Bookshop in New York City. And here's our weekly show about mysteries, authors, books, and collecting. And the author I want to talk about today is Manning Coles. Manning Coles was one of the most successful espionage writers in the 40s and 50s. His first two books were selected for the Haycraft Queen Cornerstone Library. It's called a Drink for Yesterday and A Toast to Tomorrow. They're both very highly collected books and very scarce. It's a great series about a British espionage agent. Manning Coles is the pseudonym of two people, man and woman, uh, Adelaide Coles and what's his name? Something Manning. I've forgotten. I forget so much. Anyway, she moved next door. They never had any kind of a relationship other than as collaborators. Um, but Manning, Cyril Manning, it all comes back just a little slower, was himself an espionage agent. He served in the British military and was behind enemy lines. He was in Germany. He spoke fluent German and rose to a pretty high position in the Nazi Party as obviously a double agent, a secret agent. And he brought those experiences to the books. A Drink to Yesterday and A Toast to Tomorrow are very serious books. They're essentially one book, although they're two volumes published separately, and you can read them without reading both. But they're essentially one long book, which were highly praised by Anthony Boucher and others. And as I said, both made the Haycraft Queen list as cornerstone volumes in the history of mystery fiction. I bought a very good collection of Manning Coles books. Unfortunately, the first editions of A Drink to Yesterday and A Toast to Tomorrow have sold. Drink to Yesterday, just to put it in perspective, the first British edition is extremely scarce in a collectible condition. It was published during the war in 1940 and sold for $3,000. So, but that's gone. Even the American edition of both are gone. So all I have to show you for that is A Drink to Yesterday. This is the Canadian first edition. It's very unusual for this was such a good collection. It's unusual to have Canadian books in a collection. Usually, it would be the American edition and the British edition. And here's the copyright page. I honestly don't know how collectible these books are because Canadian editions are sort of an afterthought for most collectors. It's a lovely copy in a dust jacket, but to show you what an afterthought it is, it's $45. It's not $3,000 or $300 or $400, which is what the American edition was. And here's the Canadian edition of the sequel. The same publishing company, of course, and Mussin on the title page, on the copyright page, shows no information about a reprint, so it's the first Canadian edition. This one has a badly torn dust jacket, chipped at the top, so even though it's the first Canadian edition, it's only $25. They actually had better, more interesting covers than the British edition, which was kind of plain. I do have a reprint of A Toast to Tomorrow, published by Book League, Literary Guild, which is a reprint house, and laid into it, or tipped into it, is a little card signed by Cyril Coles. But it's only a reprint, so it's $35, even though it's a nice autograph and not a common autograph either. when they autograph books, it's very common to see Manning Coles as the autograph, which is what's here. There are many books that are signed Manning Coles, and then also Cyril Coles and
Adelaide.
Adelaide Coles, Adelaide Manning, in addition to the Manning Coles autograph. And those are a little bit more interesting to me as a collector. Here's a couple of more, just because I like the covers so much, and also because they were part of the collection. Here's another Canadian first edition, and another one, and another one. All published by Musson, if that's how it's pronounced, and relatively inexpensive, even though they're quite lovely copies, and not late. I mean, these are 40s and at the worst early 50s. They're like $35 or so. It's an inexpensive way to buy handsome copies of good books. Now, one thing that's easy about collecting Manning Coles is almost all of the books are feature Tommy Hamilton. It's Hambleton the way it's spelled, but I think it's pronounced Hamilton. I think the B is silent. They're all published by Hodder and Stoughton, and they're relatively, they look like a handsome set. You know, they're all the same size essentially. Cool, and pretty good covers on some of these, as you see. But also, what's nice about them is it's easy to tell first editions with Houghton Mifflin. They do it in one of two ways. Either there is nothing on the copyright page, which tells you it's a first edition, because they invariably put second or third printing, or sometimes second or third impression, but it's a reprint. Or they will say first printed with the date. And there's no making a mistake with Houghton Mifflin, because they are, in this era, in these years, they were unfailingly accurate about doing that. There's another one showing first edition on the copyright page. And let me see if I have one where there's nothing on the copyright page. Yeah, here it just shows the copyright, but it doesn't say first published the way the others that I just showed you did, but it would say second or third impression if it did. These are beautiful copies, and they tend all to be under $100. They range from $35, $45 to as much as $85. But for books in this condition from that era, they're pretty reasonable. Since we're on Houghton Mifflin,
Hodder Stoughton. Hodder and Stoughton.
Hodder and Stoughton, yes, of course. Houghton Mifflin's an American publisher. Hodder and Stoughton. Here's what I mean when I say that they are really good about letting you know. Here's their copyright page of a reprint, and you can see it very clearly states it's a later printing. Second impression, third impression. They are equally easy to collect. Oh, just as an aside, I should point out, they wrote 3 other books under the pseudonym Francis Gait, Gait. They're not mysteries, they're ghost stories. And again, they're Houghton Mifflin, why am I doing that? Hodder and Stoughton, and as you see on the copyright page, once again, it shows first printing. The Francis Gait books are a little bit scarcer than the Manning Coles books. It was a new author, a new name, and so they were not as well known. Manning Coles became very, very successful. Excuse me. And the books were reprinted endlessly in hardcover as well as in paperback. So there are a lot of books out there. The reprints are everywhere. The first editions, not so much. So the Francis Gates are a little bit harder to find at 75. For American editions, it's equally easy because all of their books, or virtually all of their books, were published by Doubleday. This one, sorry, is an exception. It's not a Tommy Hamilton. It's a novel. It's a war novel, essentially, and quite scarce because it's not in the Hamilton series. So it wasn't published in large numbers. It's an early book. This is 1942. But Doubleday was one of the great publishing companies that you could rely on to show first edition on their copyright page. For about 15 years, I had a copy in my own collection of the Bellamy Trial, published by Doubleday, and it didn't say first edition. And I looked at dozens and dozens of copies. None of them ever said, and I thought Doubleday made a mistake and they forgot to put the first edition slug. Then I found a copy in that had the first edition slug. So they were absolutely flawless about doing that. And all of their books were published by Doubleday. So you can see, I'll show you, no, this is actually a pretty nice copy. So here's the Tommy Hamilton book, published Doubleday Crime Club, which published virtually all of their books. And there's the copyright page, and there it says first edition. As you see, now this is a particularly nice copy. It's got a review slip. I love books with review slips because they're generally the first copies that a publisher gets. We do it here at the Mysterious Press. When we get our copies shipped from the printer, they come very quickly to us, long before they go on sale, so that we can send out review copies. And so when you find a book with a review slip in, you know that it's one of the very first copies off the press. But this is particularly interesting because it has a slip in, and show you what I said before, that there's the signature of Manning Coles, but also of Manning Coles, but also of Cyril Coles and Adelaide Manning.
Adelaide Manning.
Yeah, that's her signature. Okay, not the best. You can read the Manning. The Adelaide, a little, it's a little long. Maybe she just got tired of signing a lot of books. So this, and it's practically like new copy. I think this is the most expensive Doubleday book I've got on the premises. It's $150 because it's absolutely a flawless copy. And here are more Basil Express. Very, very cool. Espionage title. It's the kind of title that Alan First would use these days. And once again, on the copyright page, you can see first edition. Now, it's not the first edition. It's the first American edition. The British editions precede. But again, they're pretty uncommon, especially in this kind of almost perfect condition. So it's 75. Most of the Doubleday editions are between 25 and 75. This is one of the most expensive. Now, to show you, this looks like the first edition. It looks like all the other Doubleday books. But it's a book club edition. And you can see on the dust jacket, it says book club edition. Now, here's something to look out for. This is very common also with Rex Stout. You'll find the corner clipped off on many of the books. It was either to not push the point or advertise the point that it was a book club edition, or meant to mislead so that you would think it's a first edition. But there's a difference. The bindings of the Doubleday books tended to be a little bit better than the bindings for the book club editions. They're just pressed paper, so you can often tell that. But the jacket being clipped will almost always tell you, because the price, as you see on the first printing, is in the upper corner. And the book club edition notice is down in the lower corner with no price on the upper corner. It's how you can tell the difference. And here's one last reprint. It's a Toast to Tomorrow. And it's, again, it's a nice hardcover edition, but it's a reprint, so it's only $20. So here's Manning Coles.